Let's go. Let's go, man. Hunt the ball. Let's go, family on three. 1, 2, 3, family.
Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films. Continuing our positional review, we're going to talk about the receivers again. Hot topic. One of these guys we're going to talk about tonight, or two of these guys, or three of these guys, maybe even all of these guys are going to have a chance to make the Ravens roster, pending any kind of additions that the Ravens make. We're talking about the UDFAs, the new guys that the Ravens brought in, went undrafted, and to go help me with this, I brought in Coach DC. Now, Coach DC, you might have seen him on all_22_cuts, one of our brothers in the community. The coach, first of all, man, how are you doing? And thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
Doing good, man. No, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm always honored and humbled. I try to say that even in comments on my channel, that I'm humbled that people would ask me to come on and offer my opinions. Generally, my expertise is on defense because that's what I spent most of my coaching time doing. But the UDFAs have been interesting to me because I am shocked, honestly, at the talent level of some of the guys that they were able to bring in who weren't drafted.
And you know what, Coach? It goes to speak to just the overall depth of the position. And there's deeper conversations to be had there when it comes to how much do you spend on a wide receiver in free agency? Do you want to spend $10 million or even $6 million on a guy like Sammy Watkins from last year? Or do you just want to draft them and keep the pipeline moving? Because like you said, like the running backs, like the inside linebackers, there's an overflow of players coming out that could play somewhere in the NFL.
Yep, absolutely. You can maybe educate me on this because I've heard three different ranges of what the actual comparison was to a typical draft. Now, who the hell knows what a typical college football season is going to look like now under, NIL, and 2020 was the, COVID season, obviously. I've heard some people say that this was almost like 2.5 drafts in one. And I don't know what the typical number is for a regular draft, Jason, but I've been told it's like 740 and that this was like 1,800. So, what do you know about that, if anything?
Okay, on those numbers, I'm not sure. But what I can tell you is I study about 250 players per year. And they're guys that I'll get from all kinds of lists that I trust. Normally in those, when I'm talking about second-round grades, I'm lucky to get to, on my personal grading scale, I'm lucky to get to 50. There might be 48 guys. Maybe I give a couple of guys the benefit of the doubt just to end a tier. You know what I mean? Of guys the Ravens might want.
Right.
Maybe I got 52 guys. This year I had like 60 some. And then as far as like guys that I'm targeting, usually I'm not getting to 100. There'll be like 80 guys that I'm targeting. This year it was 108, I believe. So it was like the middle of it was just so packed. It's not that you're getting more superstars overall is what I'm finding.
No.
It's the role players, like you coach defense, they're not every down players. There's a player that does this great. There's a player that does that great, but can't do this. So being able to find players that fit your system are becoming much easier, in my opinion. And wide receiver, just to stay on topic a little bit, you can find big possession receivers. I mean, they're going to have to be productive. They're going to have to score well. They're going to have to test well. They're going to have some kind of age upside. If not, they're not going to get drafted. And they're still usable players.
So just to make sure I understand it right, you're saying that you would normally study about 250 players, and normally somewhere a little under 50 would be guys that you would give a first or second round grade to.
Yes.
So, that doesn't surprise me that the number would be, so you're talking about 15-18% higher. It sounds like. Maybe I did my math wrong there.
Right. Something like that. I mean, it was extra 15 guys out of 50.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so that doesn't surprise me. And the receiver thing also, I think there's a component to that with the training levels. You can even see it, and I don't know how far you want to go into this, like even the high school training level at receiver and quarterback is starting sooner. No matter where you are in the region, there are multiple options. There are even high school kids who are leaving one high school to go to another one because their quarterback coach, their private quarterback coach, is affiliated with that second high school. So the training level of receivers in high schools is starting earlier, I think is getting better. And system-wide, you're seeing not just more spread stuff now, you're seeing more air raid people in high school. So you're getting it. I think there's a filter down aspect and a filter up, and I've referred to that on my channel a couple of times, but I'm getting off topic, which I typically
no, that's great. We can continue just a little bit on that because what you're seeing too is, I mean, it's just a different game from when we were kids. And there's a trickle down and a trickle up. You're right. A lot of NFL stuff comes from college. A lot
Yep.
of college stuff is coming from high school, vice versa,
Mhm.
trickle down and then trickle up. But I saw a study a couple of years ago, Coach, where like it was a ridiculous number. It was a top 100 in California, and a ridiculous number of those guys were receivers. Where back in
Right.
the day, Coach, those were your running backs, those were
Yep.
your quarterbacks. Now it's like, oh, look, we see the future in receiver. This is where the money is. Look,
Yep.
there's three receivers on the field at all time. This is, so yeah, there's definitely a position. So as a result of this, Coach, we're
More
getting
good
these
guys.
we're getting these
Yep.
undrafted receivers, and a couple of the guys, Coach, I didn't even really look at. They didn't come across my radar on the draft process, and I'm going back and I'm like, man, how the hell did I miss this guy?
Mhm.
Because you have something to work with. So why don't you kick us off, and pick one of the guys to speak about first? Excuse me for stuttering there.
Well, I won't. I won't talk about the guy that I'm personally rooting for first, and I've gone ahead on my channel and thrown out there. I think he's going to make the team. So I won't mention that name first. I'll start with Slade Bolden, who I do
Okay.
like, and I think he's tough. I think he's really good in short space. I will say this: when I see him make cuts on routes that are shorter than 6 or 8 yards, there isn't as much cutability. To use a Tavon Austin, phrase that was thrown around with him, there isn't as much start stop with Slade Bolden. Not that it's bad. I guess I would say that it didn't stick out to me as much as I thought it would. But very experienced, tough, good blocker. One of the things that stuck out, and you can interrupt me as you wish, because sometimes I divert. One of the things that stuck out to me was Slade Bolden. I thought he was a big aspect of the plan in the SEC title game against Georgia. Even the first play was a boundary size screen. I think it was three receivers over there. They attacked Georgia to the boundary a lot, and they set Jamison Williams to the field a lot to their right. Um, and Slade Bolden was a big part of that, either as a blocker or as a guy getting a screen or a guy running a bubble with an RPO run concept inside of that. And I think he's got a chance to make the team. I really do. He's a little smaller than some of these other guys. I think like 5'11", maybe 6 foot. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's about right. And I see what you mean. I expected more suddenness when I first went to
Hmm.
look at him, because obviously he had the name and he was playing for the team. We got to see him down the run in some big college games.
Hmm.
So when I'm looking at, when I start looking at the film and really digging into it, I don't see any suddenness from him. Like
Mm-mm.
that would be my knock. You put him up against a guy like James Prochet, and
Yes,
there's there's
agreed.
there's no competition. There's no
Agreed.
competition. The quickness, just the short area quickness is just not there. But what Bolden does give you is creativity in his routes.
Hmm.
He kind of slows you to death. You've probably heard that
Hmm.
term. It lulls you to sleep. And then once he gets the ball, he's a lot stronger to me than he looks, Coach. Like he's stocky and he's going to
Oh yeah,
power some yak.
he looks like a guy who, if he had gone to, a different school, instead of going to Alabama, if he had went to a perennial top 30 school, even top 40, he could have probably had 60, 80 catches 2 or 3 years in a row. But because of who he played with, he got less opportunities. I've always said that, Alabama guys, Georgia guys, and multiple other schools as well, they're team players. They block for each other, and they understand that their opportunities are going to come a little less because of where they're playing. Rewind a little bit. I totally agree with you about Prochet. I even wrote that in some of my notes here, was like, look at some of I call them China out routes or China in. Some people call them whip routes, whatever. He's
Jerk
that,
routes over here.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That boom, boom, that second step is not as
Yep.
explosive. The first step is somewhat, that second one is not, when he changes direction to go the other way. He's effective though. Look, the 2 games against Georgia this year, I think he had like 12 or 13 catches total for like 110. And the one thing I didn't think I saw was contested catches downfield. I didn't see that. I did see it over the middle, like between the hashes against linebackers and maybe some nickel safeties, but I didn't see contested catches downfield.
No, and one of the things that both work in Bolden's favor and work against him, in my opinion, is that in the NFL, he's going to have a very limited area. To speak to your
Hmm.
point, it's going to be between the hashes, pretty much.
Hmm.
You might catch him towards the sideline on something short, but down the field, down the sidelines, you're not going to throw him the ball. He has no chance, in my opinion, in the NFL to run those kind of routes.
Hmm.
I don't see the contested catches. I don't see the body control. I don't see a lot of things. I mean, he's just not. an athletic type guy,
Mhm.
fast or quick. But what he does is he's able to leverage people, and he's able to just kind of manipulate the defense in a way where he's seems like a dependable player, coach, both in blocking
Absolutely.
and receiving.
He looks like a winner, you know. He looks like a
Winner.
winner. Now, to compare him to Prochet again, I feel like if you were to compare them right now, I feel like you've got a way better football player in Prochet, a guy who's going to give you more. But the blocking aspect, Bolden looks solid. He looks strong. When I looked up his height and weight, like I said, I think it's 6 foot, 190. I thought, man, he kind of looked like he was like 215 to me,
That's
210.
what I thought. That's what I
You know,
thought. I thought, he looks like a guy to me who's like 5'10", not even 6 foot,
yeah,
5'10", 200. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like that's the kind of body type that I
solid.
see on him because, when people are trying to tackle him, he'll often carry some of these smaller
Mhm.
guys for a couple of yards. You know what I mean?
It's going to be
But
a fight, Jason, between these guys. I know Shamar Bridges. It's Shamar Bridges, right? Did I say that right?
yep,
That he's already signed. So it's a 3 year for the UDFAs, right?
I think so. Yes, coach. And then you
Yes.
can you can tag him after that, I believe.
Right. So there's going to be a fight between these guys to see who makes the team and to see who even gets signed.
Exactly. Exactly. But Bolden, you mentioned, I think, 2 or 3 times the blocking. That's really important in that role. Now, I would say to you, coach, and you probably seen it, don't sleep on James Prochet's blocking ability. We've
Mhm.
seen it on special teams. He's fearless. I think he's actually, he looked pretty good in that area last year. There wasn't a lot to go off of 2020, to be honest. But
Prochet's
last year,
driven. He's
yeah,
driven. I know you're the driver or the conductor of the Prochet
yeah,
bandwagon,
yeah,
and so I understand who I'm talking to, but like Prochet's driven. You can see that. Like even some of the like everybody uses the jugs machine. Everybody does, diving catch drill onto a pad. You see some of those videos of him doing that. Everybody does that. But it but whenever they show those drills or we get a picture or maybe a 7-second clip of it, James Prochet's always in it. He's
yeah.
always in there. He's like, and I think he's driven, man. And I really truly believe that the universe bends to people who are driven. And I think that James Prochet is one of those people. Maybe he won't get his opportunity to be a star, to be a 70 catch guy. I think James Prochet could absolutely get 40, 50 catches for this team this year. You know,
See, we're on the same page. I put him in a different offense, and I think he's a 50, 60, catch guy at
Mhm.
least or higher. But yeah, as it relates to Bolden, though, with the blocking, we saw the Ravens, especially in 2019, rely on Willie Snead in that kind of
Mhm.
role, where Snead was basically lined up on the
Mhm.
wing a lot of times as a tight end type or really close to the line of scrimmage. And
Mhm.
in on these running downs, was very effective blocking up to linebackers from your wide receiver, Willie Snead. And when I look at Bolden, he's a guy that I think may be a better blocker than some of the other options we would
Yes.
have in the slot. So maybe he's a guy where you're trying to manipulate Coach DC, the defensive coach there, and
Mhm.
leave a receiver on the field, but really you're using him as a tight end.
Yeah.
Could you see Bolden, Slade Bolden in that role?
Yeah, I thought we did it with Tylan Wallace some last year. So the comp for in terms of who's on our roster this year, maybe I missed the mark there. Maybe it's Tyler Wallace because Wallace did that multiple times, and I call it the hide route. Where the Y or the Z lines up, outside the tackle or outside another tight end, and then runs underneath behind the offensive line, slips out
Okay.
to the flats. I call it hide. I don't know what you guys call it, but we ran that with Tyler Wallace some last year, and Bolden could be one of those guys. I like him. I think we're very blessed to have gotten these guys. Regardless of what people think about whether we drafted a receiver or not, let's for a moment isolate that element from the fact that we brought in these guys who have ability. We're very blessed to that
Yeah.
these guys came here. They could have chosen the Chargers or whoever else called them. Bolden had other options. Makai Polk certainly had other options. I don't know about Bridges and Devon Williams, but I know those two guys did.
Yeah, I mean Bolden, especially Bolden and Polk, like you said, um, they could have been drafted, easily been
Mhm,
drafted. They almost made my board.
mhm.
Yeah, and they chose the Ravens for a reason. I believe Coach Harbaugh was the one on the phone with
Yep.
Slade Bolden, if I'm remembering that press conference and all the
Mhm.
draft coverage. But yeah, there's a spot for him. But I'm not sure if what do you think about Bolden? Do you think another team would pick him up if we tried to practice squad him? Is he that
Probably.
good?
Probably, yeah. At this point, like we can only go on the film that we had. The whatever, however people get their film. I know how I try to get mine, but we can only go on that film that we had. So it's kind of like, hey, let me go into a cave for a month and then try to predict the stock market based on information I had 1 month ago. So I feel a
Right.
little disconnected from that, but I will say that from looking at it, playing a lot for Alabama, having an impact against Georgia, that's the piece that not just an impact in the blocking game, it catches as well. Um, I think the guy can play. I think there's a place for people like him, in the NFL. Is he a 50 catch guy? Probably not. Obviously, but he could be a guy who contributes to a really good team. I know this. If he goes to a Tom Brady era Patriots team, that guy probably is a person you see make plays on Monday Night Football 3 or 4 times a year, and people go, "Man, he can play." So there's got
Right.
to be a way for us to utilize and find guys like that. And we certainly find guys like that, but I don't know that we find guys like that at receiver. We have the opportunity to do that now, and it needs to be taken advantage of.
The only thing for me, coach, is I'm looking at it like this. We have a lot of guys who can potentially play the slot when you're talking about,
Mhm,
I mean, even Bateman, you know what I mean? We have
mhm.
everybody can play the slot. We have a lack of guys who can play, who are proven on the outside, I would say, compared to the slot, comparatively. Not that they can't play anywhere, but for me, that makes Bolden a guy that it's going to be hard for him because all the other guys we're going to talk about tonight have some big size, and
Exactly.
it looked like the Ravens wanted to bring that in. So is Bolden, if Bolden is not on the 53, I could see another team who uses more receivers just
Absolutely.
snatching him right away from us. So I'm a
Yep.
little confused whether he's going to make the team because we want to protect him, or if he has a good shot at making the team, we protect him, or if the Ravens are going to go with one of these big guys. I have a feeling it's going to be one of the big guys. So
Me too.
yeah. So I want to talk about Makai Polk, and I'm hoping this is the guy that you're talking about that you think is
Mm.
going to make the team. Is this the guy, Coach?
Yes, Jason. I mean, I don't know. I watched the film and I watched like 6 plays, and I called up a friend of mine who's a great DB coach, and I said, can you watch something for me? And I like uploaded it to a Google Drive, and I sent it to him, and he said, dude, are you talking about number 10? I said, yeah. He said, who drafted him? I said, no one.
Nobody.
And he's like, this is the SEC. Now I haven't seen the Alabama game. It was like I think 7 catches for 58 yards. Are you getting some echo? Is my
No, I
settings
feel
bad?
I sound. You sound good to me. How
Okay,
about?
all right. I don't want to mess
Okay.
up your broadcast. um, 7 catches for like 55 or 58 against Alabama this year. So I would love to see that game. But and I know that the criticism of Mike Leach stuff is like, you have inflated stats. It's an air raid system. Hey, newsflash, that's what the Cardinals run. That's where Marquise Brown just went, to an air raid system. That's what Kyler Murray played in Oklahoma, is an air raid system. So those things are matriculating up and down, like we talked about. But Makai Polk is a guy who can read the coverage. He's a guy who's got great freaking hands. Like, I don't see drops at all. And some of his routes, little snag routes, little in breaking routes, the ball is thrown from 6 yards depth to the quarterback, and he's catching it at 5-6 yards depth, and the ball is fired in there like it's coming out of the jugs on the highest setting, and it's just like shoot. He's like Prochet. To me, looking at him, he looks like he'd have hands on par with Prochet, and I know you probably don't like that.
And he plays. No, that's great. No, I love it. And his arms, he plays very long, so he's got
Mm,
a way to, like you said, attack the ball on these little hitch routes or anything that requires you to eat up
mhm,
space to make sure you get the ball. He's catching the ball way out in front of him, Coach.
mhm.
Strong hands, and with his frame being 6'3", now he's not wide like a Bridges or some of the other guys we'll talk about, but
Mm-mm.
he is really long, and I mean, it's got to be tough for a DB to get around this guy and try to swat in an arm because it just because of his length and the way he plays. But really crafty, high
Yes.
IQ receiver is what I saw. I mean, this is a guy that I think was able to get open in a variety of different ways, despite
Yes.
not being an explosive athlete.
6'3", 200. And the complaint or the knock, one of the I forget who it was. His family, it's a coaching family. Gosh, I forget the last name. His receiver coach last year at Mississippi State basically told him, you should return. You should come back to college to gain weight. And it's like, he's 6'3", 200. Bateman was 6'3", 192 last year when he came out. Now, I understand Bateman was sick, his last year in college, so there was an issue there, and maybe he dropped weight. But Polk, to me, and maybe people won't like me saying this, he reminds me of Bateman. He reminds me of Bateman from size standpoint, from a standpoint of maybe Bateman's a little quicker, but Bateman's not a burner. Now he's not slow, but he's not a burner by any shape of the stretch of the imagination. Polk reminds me of Bateman because he can win on the outside. You mentioned it a couple minutes ago. Slade Bolden is clearly not a guy who would even line up there in most cases. I mean, he's 6'3", 200, going to gain weight, long arms, like you said, very intelligent. To me, he is reading the coverage on almost every play in that air raid system, and he's adjusting his route accordingly. They did use him on some screens sometimes. Some of the game, look, he had 8 catches for 115 against Arkansas. Of course, I think Arkansas was 8-4 last year. I could be wrong. 13 for 120 and 2 touchdowns against Texas A&M. Another 10-catch game against Mississippi. Like, I don't know how the guy didn't get drafted. He must interview horribly.
Yeah, it could be something like that, and it could be just the 1 year production, and it could be the fact that he had 105 catches for little under 1,050 yards, so he wasn't even at 10 yards a catch because, like you said, Coach, they weren't afraid to throw it to him on these little bubble screens and let him fight for yards, which again is impressive to me for a guy who's, for lack of a better word, tall and skinny. I mean, they will throw it to the tall, skinny guy and let him fight for yards. But his high IQ, Coach, and what you were talking about, slight adjustments to his routes, that is what I love in a receiver. That is what I love in a receiver, and especially for this Ravens team with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback, facing a ton of zone concepts on that side of the field. Yes. For him to say, all right, well, I see the guy is a little bit this way, so I'm going to cut my route a little short, or I'm going to flatten my route a little bit, or I'm going to stretch my route a little bit more vertical on this. Kind of like what we see from a Mark Andrews, just being able to find space. So picture this, fans. He's 6'3". His hands are automatic, like Coach said. And he's able to give you, if you're a quarterback, a safe window in which to throw, where you don't have to be perfect with the throw. This tall, long guy is creating space for me to throw the ball. Let me just go ahead and give it to him. Now, where I disagree with you, Coach, so I want you to expand on this because this is something I didn't see, is I don't see him downfield when the tape I watched, I didn't see a guy who I thought could be any kind of threat downfield. I saw a possession receiver.
Yeah, not a long ball type receiver. No, not a guy who's going to run, a post and get a ton of separation against man-to-man. No, I didn't see that a ton of. I saw deep sideline, comeback routes. I saw a couple of, and we ran these with Marquise Brown last year when he was lined up on the right side, like, a deep curl route, something like that. I think he presents well, and you've covered this a little bit already with his frame and how he does catch the football. He always seems to end up squared to the ball. Mm-hmm. He always seems to understand, you see these guys who they run a good route, but they're, and this is, forget what the actor was, who's makes that, Al Pacino, that makes that great speech. Like, this is a game of inches. You see those guys who run a good route and they do a lot of things right. And when they get back to the ball, their bodies turn slightly and maybe they're 3 inches off from a really good catch. I just don't see that happening with Makai Polk. He always seems to be centered up on the football, and he doesn't seem to now he can make catches to the side of his body, but I thought I saw a really good receiver. But to your point, getting back to that, I didn't see a ton of downfield routes, but I don't think he's slow, and I don't, he's faster than Kyle Hamilton, according to the
right. 40. I just want to read it off. Yeah, I'll read it off for the people who don't know. A 4.59 40. 4.59. So you're looking at the same time Mark Andrews ran, to give an example. 4.36 shuttle. Again, not slow, but not quick by any means. And I think his game speed about matches that. I think he plays a little bit faster, but that's just because of his high IQ, Coach. And when a lot of times they say, all right, well, we want a team that can play basketball on turf.
That's right.
The example you gave about staying square to the ball and always being at the right angle, it kind of reminds me of a power forward that you're feeding the ball to in the post, where he knows where the defender is on his hip.
That's right.
And he can just get put in a position to but just to move the conversation forward, Coach, obviously both of us, both film junkies, both just a ton of love for this guy. I could see him making the team like you kind of alluded to earlier, because he's a workhorse type of guy, and we have I don't know, we have a question mark, say, at the Z receiver, on that right sideline. Rashad Bateman's one of the few guys on this team, I think, who has the pure obvious ability, probably the only guy who's an obvious X receiver, and X is the toughest position to play, to find guys. We have plenty of slot guys who could be that high volume if we needed them to run route combinations with Mark Andrews on that side.
Yeah.
Man, Makai Polk, to me, has a real shot not only to make the team, but to get some starts.
To get in the game. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And then, God forbid something happens to Bateman, body size, speed wise, he's a little slower than Bateman, like we talked about. But to me, he fits right in there if we had to, move someone over there. I think he's an NFL player. I think he's got an 8-10 year career ahead of him from a talent standpoint. Now, I did forget this earlier that I read one of his interviews in Indianapolis where he said, "I think I'm the best receiver here," and maybe that came across the wrong way to people. Maybe he interviewed in the same way, but I like the confidence. I wish, I'm sure you're the same way, Jason. Like, I wish I could go and watch the OTAs, dude, and just watch these guys compete, because we've got a great group of young DBs and we've got a great group of young receivers. Let me qualify that. We've got a lot of young receivers who have an opportunity and want to succeed. Are they great talent-wise? No, but they're guys who can play and have shown it. So I would love to see the competition.
Me too. Maybe we can put it in for a press pass, bro, for training camp. And between you and I, man, we'll have like the #1 hit show in the evenings reviewing our training camp notes. But hey, before we move off of this guy, there's one other thing, and so his ability to play both sides. One of my questions is for a guy who's taller and not stocky and not real sudden, is if he could play X to get off a press. So did you get a feel? I saw a lot of off coverage for him, a lot of just him making room for himself, but I didn't see him get pressed up against a lot, which quite frankly is like, it's hard to find at the college level. So what are your opinions or early impressions? Do you think Makai Polk could play X and get off press?
So 2 thoughts. Number one, we see, as we talked about before the show, like, we see a lot of quarters coverage. We see a lot of off corners coverage. So, like, hey, you want to go back? You want to play man free against us? Cool. Play man free. And then now, we run downfield and Lamar breaks contain. And now, because that's what happened in 2018 and in some cases 2019. People played a lot of man, typical man.
Turned their back on Lamar and paid for it.
Turned their back on Lamar, and now they're not doing that. Now they're playing quarters and they're keeping everything in front. Unless they're playing, cover. I call it sticks, but other people, Kurt Warner calls it blitz zero. Okay, fine. But that's not the same thing. That's not press man. That's off man where the DBs are looking at the quarterback and they're reading the quarterback's open shoulder and face mask. So that would be one thought, is that we're not seeing a lot of that. But let's answer the question, which I thought he did not look bothered. I thought he did not look hurried by anything in the film. I even wrote it. I even typed it in a little Word document. I put, he reminds me of the old guy who's been playing basketball at the same outdoor court for 30 years and no one can stop him. Like, he just reminds me of the guy, like, I don't know, where you're from, if they, what you play to. Us, it was normally 11. So, like, he reminds me of the guy in an 11-point game. He always scores 4 or 5 points, and that's who he reminded me of. It didn't seem like he was that affected by the press coverage, but I don't have any specific examples other than I did see Roger McCreary press up on him a couple of times on Mississippi State's right side, and I thought McCreary competed with him, and I thought there was some physicality there on both sides. I did see him make 2 catches in those situations. I thought there was an interference that probably could have been called. So yeah, maybe there was an impact, and I'm just not remembering it as much, right now, because I like the guy so much.
Something that I'm going to keep in mind is how you started that last statement, which is, Lamar changes the amount of just sheer press and bump and run and that kind of thing that we face. So maybe there is some position flexibility for him. And, coach, we could even motion him into the slot, start him on the outside, motion him into a slot. So it's on the coaches to get a guy like this involved. But this is awesome. So, I like to agree heavily, and sometimes I like to disagree heavily. But since Makai Polk is my guy also, one of my favorites, I like him and Zacoby McClain, the linebacker. Those are my two guys. Those are my 2 guys I picked with Ken to talk about both of them. So yeah, it's good to hear that you're seeing the same things.
Sorry for interrupting you, man. I got really bad internet, and sometimes I interrupt, and I'm not meaning to. when you contacted me about talking on the show and meeting and stuff, first of all, and this is fun, so I really appreciate it. I thought, you know what, let me look at a couple of other defensive guys just in case. And it's so funny, we're in alignment, dude, because like Zacoby McClain was the other guy. I mean, he has 17 tackles one game as a junior. He had 16 tackles, I believe, the very next week. And anyone who's ever been around, well, any sport, but football, I assume that both of those games were played on Saturdays. Zacoby McClain makes 17 tackles on one Saturday, has to recuperate his body, game plan for the next team. I don't even remember who they were, but he made 16 tackles the next Saturday. That's a trait that is very rare, and quick, smaller, but quick, smart as hell. And comes from that Auburn inside linebacker background. Of course, we got a really good one. You probably know if you watch my stuff at all. Like, I'm a huge Josh Bynes fan. And
He reminds me of Bynes a lot.
Yes, exactly.
He does.
Yep.
He does.
Yep.
So maybe we'll grab Coach for the inside linebacker show on this too, because I love that group, and I think McClain has got a shot to do a lot more than what people are expecting. So
if you
Coach,
do that, man, you gotta let me draw some diagrams and drills up. And no, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Jason.
There we go. Yeah, man. Hey, it's kind of a boring screen here, Coach, because you can feel me on this. A lot of times when I do videos like that, I'll put the highlights of the players up there to get my ugly mug off the screen. But you got your channel dinged for putting up college footage.
Yes.
I've got my channel dinged. I didn't want to get it taken down like yours. So
No, sir.
Unfortunately for the people tonight, Coach, they're just this beautiful face right here is all they're going to get. But for some of the linebacker stuff and for the returning players, I'll have Ravens film over that.
That'd be fun, man.
So, okay, Coach. So I'm going to give you one of my guys that I think plays a lot faster than his numbers. I think that his superpower is he has terrible numbers, but his burst off the line and the way he gets in to his route and the way he's able to separate at the top of the route defies these numbers. And that's Trevon Clark.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed this, Coach, but I mean, this is a guy who ran about a 4.7, and it wasn't just about one number. His vert was terrible. His shuttle was terrible. Any kind of like numbers that you want to pull up for this guy says, man, this guy, I mean, these are tight end numbers, man. And
right.
When I go and turn on the tape and I see him averaging about 20 yards a catch, I'm like, all right, how the hell is this happening? How's a guy running a 4.7 averaging about 20 yards a catch? It's because he's a long strider. He gets into the route. He has real urgency off the line, Coach, where he is eating up a ton of space and putting a ton of pressure on that DB to turn his hips. And I'll see him breaking off some of these, like hooks and curls, deep hooks, deep curls, and even get past a guy because he's just – I don't know. I love how he starts his routes, Coach. Did you notice anything on that?
I watched one game of him, so you're going to have to carry this one, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And you got to understand too about me, like, and it doesn't matter for your viewers. They clearly don't have to agree with me. I'm not a big combine guy. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer to see the film. We don't know what that weekend is like. We don't know how. First of all, imagine maybe you went to Purdue or you went to Indiana or wherever you went to. Combine's in Indianapolis, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, how far, what's your travel time, to there? Not far. What if you're in, Arizona, Hawaii, right. What's your travel time? Number one. Number two, we don't know what a guy's diet is like when he's on the road. Some people, myself included, I eat well at home because my wife makes me,
yes.
I go on the road, I eat like shit,
Me too.
So, I'm interested in seeing a larger sample size than just the combine. Of course, however, these guys get weeks to prepare for the combine. And when they come in there and don't put on a good showing, you have to think, you have to think that that's where their range of athleticism is on some level. What was the 40 time again? 4.72?
It was 4.69, but I just wanted to reply very quickly on that. Things like the combine, I'm looking at field drills. The field drills are very important to me. The Senior Bowl, along with the Senior Bowl and the East-West, what I like about those events is they're all on the same field. Everybody's on the travel is different, but it's like an equal playing field. So when I see a guy light up the Senior Bowl and pick things up, like a Mac Jones was an example of that. He was clearly the most comfortable guy out of the quarterbacks last year. And I'm like, okay, I can see where his people say high IQ, just picking it up, playing pitch and catch. It's just natural to him. So I do gain stuff from the combine. But what I like to do, Coach, is watch the film first. I talked about this on the last video. kind of guess what I think their numbers will be.
Mm,
And then if there's any discrepancy, then it causes me to go back and double check. So
word.
with Trevon Clark, I thought he was a 4.5 guy. Maybe
Right.
low 4.5s, maybe even high 4.4s. Then he runs his 4.69. I'm like, what the hell? Then he has a 31-inch vert. I'm like, wait a minute, where's the explosiveness for a guy averaging 20 yards a catch? His shuttle was terrible. Like he just didn't look. It wasn't he wasn't prepared. He didn't look explosive at all compared to the other athletes. So maybe it was a bad day. But I'm with you, Coach. I go on the tape.
He's
I
a
go on
big.
the tape.
He's real big and thin, right?
He is. I want to say he's between 6'3" and 6'5", like the rest of these
Yeah.
guys. But yeah, you didn't notice at all? What I would like you to pay attention to is the urgency in which he gets into his routes.
Right.
From
That's
from
different. That's
from,
unique.
from the snap of the ball to the top of the route. It's just long striders, eats up quickly. He's able to pitter patter his feet and get in and out of breaks pretty quickly, which just defies all the numbers. So I brought up the numbers just to say,
Yeah.
for this particular player, it's a mismatch, man. It's an absolute mismatch.
There's and it's clear, and you can interrupt me and disagree with me if you wish, or tell me where I'm wrong. It's clear that the Ravens are looking for a paradigm for a receiver. They're looking for a 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" guy. Based on the UDFA guys that they brought in, they weren't, other than Slade Bolden, who has that background, and who doesn't get someone from Alabama, if you have the opportunity. But they're looking for that guy. Hell, even Makai Polk is a little smaller than Trevon Clark is. Shamar Bridges is what, 6'4", 6'5"?
Shamar's just thicker. They're all
Yeah,
like the same height, but
Devon Williams too.
Devon Williams, very, very thick. Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't. I mean, I'd be interested. I'm gonna have to sit down and watch more Trevon Clark film. I feel like I'm someone who's trying to speculate on the stock market, who stopped paying attention to the stock market a month ago because
Don't worry about it.
we got no film of them. We got no film of them other than the OTA highlights that they put out, which is awesome stuff. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, man, if you guys put out more, we'd watch it. We'd watch all of it. What was Clark's numbers for the year, stats
So,
wise? Sorry,
he was basically a rotational guy.
that's what I thought. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
So, you look at it. I think he only started 4 games, but what does that mean, really? You know what I mean? It was pretty much like a rotational guy, but only 33 receptions.
And that's where Makai Polk went, right? Makai Polk wasn't he from there?
Right, and Clark, I don't know if it was a transfer, but if they saw we're on the same team, but Clark transferred from USC, I believe,
That's
to
right.
UCLA. So again, talking about what we kind of brushed over earlier. I don't know if it was on or off air, but these guys moving around trying to find the right spot for themselves. But the other thing that I want you to pay attention to when you dig in more is that he's got some feistiness. I mean, there's not a lot of
Good.
Obviously, like with the ball in his hands, only 33 catches. So there's not a lot to look at. But this guy is a fighter for a big, strong guy. You see the urgency in the blocking. You see a lot of high energy. He's a high energy guy, which I really like. He doesn't play with any kind of fear. And again, when I saw the 20 yards per catch, I'm like, all right, well, this is a one-trick pony type of guy. Only 4 starts, this kind of thing. Like, a guy that I did not study through the combine process, so I had no frame of reference. The first time I looked at him was after the Ravens drafted him, so I couldn't help myself. Before I dug into the film, I looked up his, college football reference and just a basic report on him. So I did him backwards to how I do my normal prospects. And like when I watched him on tape, I'm like, you know what? I like this guy, Coach.
Huh. Well, the cool thing is, you watch a lot of film, so you watch a lot of film. And you do your diligence. And you sound like what I'm trying to be honest with you, in terms of, I'm not going to make an immediate or snap judgment. I'm going to allow the film and allow, whatever data is out there to take me where it needs to take me. So first of all, I commend you on that, because it's difficult to do that sometimes. And I intentionally try to do that and allow the film to take me where it should take me. It sounds like you're A, impressed with the guy, and B, think that, again, we're very blessed to have gotten him. Along with this package of guys, I don't remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I do not remember us being this heavy at one position for UDFAs and this many guys who could play. This appears to me, to use a basketball reference, to be a group of 7 guys who all 7 of them can play, and they don't bring players 8 through 12. They just bring 7 dudes and kick your ass in basketball. That's what this looks like to me. It looks like 7 guys who can all go all game, and I can't wait to watch some more film. You caught me off guard here.
Yeah, no, I can I think that a guy like this is somebody that we could potentially hide and
Develop.
keep
Right,
and
because he's
develop
underrated. Yep, exactly. Not like
because he's
Bolden, right?
not like Bolden, right? The exact opposite. That's exactly where I was going with this. This is a guy that could blow it up at practices and will be like, you know what? We ain't even playing this dude in the preseason games as much. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? We don't even want to show him too much because I think there's a lot to work with Trevon Clark out of Cal. And he's a guy, like I said, I didn't study before the draft, during the draft. I just saw his name come up. Him and Bridges, I had no clue who they are.
Right,
And when I turned on the film, I'm like, what? This is not a 4.69 guy. So I'm
right.
excited to hear your feedback if you get a chance to watch him more after this, either on Twitter or in the comments on this YouTube video, or, I'm sure you'll probably do a breakdown of him sooner or later. But yeah, Coach, think of this guy as one of my, like, I think more highly of him than I think the league valued him. That's
Yeah,
how I put it.
forgive me for not being as prepared on him as the other guys. Number one, number two, like I think the big receiver thing, we're going in the opposite direction of certain of other teams. We're going in the opposite, and I like that. I think uh, not trying to go big picture on you, but
Go ahead, man.
the dynamic of how we are defended. The Browns are small at inside linebacker, and they use a nickel defender a lot. And the Bengals are very versatile, and they change coverages a lot, but they do not want to spin safeties down. And when I say safeties, I don't mean the nickel safety. I mean they're too high safeties. Their corners play off. We talked about this, before the show. Their corners are
Yes.
off coverage, 6-8 yards, and they're not jumping flat routes. We are, if you ask me, we're going in another dynamic with getting bigger receivers. Now, I'm not saying Trevon Clark, Makai Polk, Slade Bolden is going to be able to go in there and get catches against the Bengals number. No, that's not what I'm saying right now. But for me, if that's where we're going with our UDFAs, it's possible that that's what we're looking at in terms of our long-term answers, the higher level talent that we could acquire either through trade or draft next season or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was having this conversation 100 times is like what the Ravens are looking for as far as, okay, are we trading for a receiver, a free agent receiver?
Right.
And I'm getting mixed signals here, but the one consistent thing that I think the Ravens are looking for and something that I personally think we need is some yards after catch.
Hmm.
So basically just whether it be a short route or give me a guy I can throw it to for 5 yards on first down, at
Hmm.
least, at the very least. Can Polk get open on something short? Break his route off at 7 yards, catch it at 5 yards, lean forward, that kind of thing.
Right.
Or can we, swing the ball to a guy like Trevon Clark or Devin Williams and have them bowl their way? But like kind of like how we were trying to force touches to Hollywood at the end of the year.
Yes.
If you're going to play way off of us and respect that, because we have a ton of speed in the room. Bateman's not slow. Wallace isn't slow. Duvernay's fast. Prochet's not slow. So I think like I'm looking for size and yak are the two things that I think we're looking for as far as what to add to the room, Coach.
I,
Would you agree with that?
no, totally agree. Absolutely. Two things to respond to that, these are in agreement with that, but I don't. Hopefully, I can remember what those two things are. Number one, us getting that quarters coverage, and some of it's split field coverage where one side is making one call and one side's making the other. But in most cases, it's a too high coverage. It's soft corners who are off, and that is not. It's not like trading away Marquise Brown's going to change that dynamic. That's not why they're playing that. They're
It's for
playing that.
Lamar.
They're playing that coverage for Lamar. That's why they're playing that coverage. That's not going to change. Number one, number two is I don't think that we have to dink and dunk certain coverages. I don't. I don't. I'm like and we're changing gears here a little bit, but like the Miami, you know, blitz zero sticks coverage. I don't believe in dink and dunk in that. I don't. I believe in, let's beat you and get you out of that coverage. Because it's not a legitimate coverage. Now we're off task there, so my apologies. But
Now,
yes, getting yards after the catch, should be a priority. However, the quarters coverages, the soft coverages, the inside linebackers who respond well to pass reads and get in their drops appropriately. And we have one who's not very good at that, and you know who I'm talking about. Um, is designed to limit the big plays, is designed to keep everything in front. So I think that yes, we do need yak, and yes, we should be looking for that. game planning that, looking for players who are good at that, you're absolutely on point there. I will say I believe that defenses can do things to try to limit that coverage wise. And unfortunately for us, the quarterback we have necessitates that they almost have to play these soft quarters coverages because they can't play man free. You don't, like for example, stop me when you want me to.
No, go ahead.
Belichick on third downs historically is playing man free, rushing four, has an inside linebacker playing the low hole, and a free safety middle of the field. That's what he's doing. He's playing man free and he's matching up. You look at 2020 film of us going up there, and he did play that against us when we went up there 2020, we lost. Very disappointing game, like 23-17 or something, right?
Yeah, in the rain when Nick Boyle got hurt.
Yeah, he did play that coverage against us. Don't get me wrong. There are opportunities that brings up, however, for us to scramble with Lamar and rip off a 20-yard run that totally changes the drive, totally changes the field position, totally changes the way, let's say it's 3rd and 6 and we're on our own 38 and you play man free and there's only like 2.5 minutes left in the half. Maybe you're going to get the ball back if you stop us and you're going to have an opportunity to score. Lamar rips off a 20-yard scramble because you play man free and everybody's back is turned, and now A, you're not getting the ball back, and B, we might go down and score a touchdown. So the fabric of the end of the half and the beginning of the third quarter has changed. Hopefully the way I'm explaining this is making sense, Chase. Forgive me if it's not.
It is to me, but hopefully everybody's hanging in there. But you know what that all screams to me, Coach, is that Makai Polk, for no matter however they want to play it, he's going to be able to beat you one way or the other.
We're going to get the same coverages this year that we got last year. The thought process, I understand it. Like, hey, you traded away Marquise Brown and we didn't get, a quote legitimate guy, in return in the draft. They're going to change their coverages. No, they're not. There are certain coverages you cannot play against Lamar Jackson, period. Because if you play them, you open up the possibility of a big play, and they want to make him execute. They want to make him have to work the way downfield. Like, Phil Simms with the Giants. I'm old. Well, you are too. Shit. Phil Simms with the Giants. They work his way downfield, 7-yard slant, 5-yard out. Maybe occasionally a dig. They want to make him have to do that because they cannot play certain other coverages. So anyway, we digress. Trevon Clark sounds like a really good player.